Yeah, little Ernest. I think renting is for single, busy people, and buying a house are for married couples who want to start a family and have kids, so the kids can grow up in a house, which is a steady addition. That's honestly what I feel, but people say that that's generalizing. That's not necessarily true because now there's a big trend of single people buying houses. Like it's
And
a big
in the
thing.
houses by themselves.
Right, buying house first, and that's how I always viewed housing. But at the end of the day, it's like as we're getting older, you're not gonna just sit around waiting to be married. What if you never get married? You know,
Right.
if you want a home, does that mean you're never going to own a home? So I see it from both ways. And just because you're older doesn't mean that you still don't want to rent. There's
Right.
older people who don't want to be bothered with a house.
Right.
You
And
know?
Ernest, I agree with you. And I still feel that way to an extent, but I also realize getting older that a house doesn't have to mean a 4-bedroom house in a suburb with 3 bathrooms. Like just owning could be you owning your condo. It could be
A one bedroom condo.
Yeah, there's 1-bedroom condo. You know what I mean? Like owning doesn't necessarily have to mean you go and sit in that big house by yourself. And that's what I had to reprogram my mind. Because whenever I think of a house, I just think of like the house I grew up in. Not that it's big or anything, but it's too much. I wouldn't want to live in it by myself. Mm-hmm. Like that's not a goal for me, right? So like I always felt like, why would I buy a house and live in it by myself? Like it's weird, you know, because I always thought like houses are like for families. But with this market, I feel like a lot of people feel like they're being pushed into home ownership because
I understand.
Because of the rent prices, you know, like they just feel as if if I'm going to pay this money, let me just put it towards equity and know that I'm building towards something. You know what I mean? That I'm building towards something that's mine versus throwing money away. The term I hate, but I get what they mean. But I just hate that term when people say rent is throwing money away because to me, I look at it like rent, shelter, food, water. Those are necessities. Mm-hmm. You have to live somewhere. So I feel like when I get what people are trying to say, even in the video, the lady said technically rent is throwing your money away. But I feel like when people say that, it's like, so the alternative for people who can't buy, what are they supposed to do? Like, right, homeless. Like I feel like throwing money away is like you saying you're wasting it. But to me, housing can never be a waste because it's an essential, it's a need.
Maybe you could say like luxury living is a waste.
Yeah,
but when you pay apartments like are
renting is a waste. To me, it's kind of elitist. Like I don't like it. Rubs me the wrong way because I'm like, how about people that are renting because they can't afford to buy? Right. So where are they supposed to? They're throwing money away because they can't afford a house. Like you know what I mean? I get what they mean in the investment part and over time. I understand what they're trying to say, but when you really break down the language,
it's not easy. It's not so simple the way some people.
I didn't even know they had all these credit stipulations. I was doing a lot of research going through this Rocket Mortgage 1+ program, 1% down. Talk about the credit scores people need. It may not sound that high, but when you get older, there's a lot of people who have credit issues because of their past, their family may have even messed up their credit. It may not even be anything of their own nature. People have gotten sick. They end up with medical bills they can't afford. Their credit is shot. Like these numbers may not sound high, but that alone could be a barrier for someone not buying a house. Their credit scores, they're working on their credit. Mm-hmm. They're building up the credit. They may have the money, but they don't have the credit. Some people have the credit, they don't have the money. Some people have this, they don't. Even the debt to income. There's so many factors that are looked at overall. So I just feel like people should just be careful when they say certain things because it could come off just not sounding right.
Yes, so is the reason down south so expensive now is because everyone is relocating to those cities? I kind of feel like, I don't think down south is expensive in general. I think major cities are more expensive.
Major cities, it's about Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, Charlotte, these cities that people are relocating to. Like I said, people are moving from places that are more expensive, so they're used to paying a certain amount of money for living. I said, if you bring people in Manhattan paying $3,000 a month to live in a box, so if you give them that same box in Houston, that's $2,000. It's a steal. It's cheap. But for the average Houstonian that's making a Houstonian salary, $2,000 a month for rent is a lot.
Mia said, I haven't bought a house yet because I don't know what city I want to raise my kids in when I do have kids or settle in permanently versus an apartment you can jump up and go anytime.
And that's another fact that they brought up in the video too. Like I said, lifestyle, right? Mm-hmm. The way you can sell a house for sure. I don't feel like a house should necessarily hold anyone down, but I can't lie and say that when I think of someone having a house, it grounds you a little more. Like it's not like you're gonna buy a house and then the next second you're running somewhere else, and the next there's things you have to consider when you have a house. Like you just can't move as easily. You can still move though for sure, especially if you're young, you're not tethered to anything. It's not an excuse, but I could definitely say that renting makes it easier just to pack up, move, really go to another city, go to another country, not worry about things. So I can understand why you would be waiting to see what city you want to raise your kids, but that's also based on your partner, right, Nia? So you're saying what city y'all want to raise your kids when you do have kids or settle in permanently versus an apartment. Yeah. People have their different reasons. I don't think it's necessarily a right or wrong. It's just personal preference. You know, I feel like when you go on social media these days, it can be a little overwhelming. The shaming, everyone should have a house at this age, everyone should have this, everyone should have this much saved, everyone. And I understand, you know, we have more access to resources. There's a lot more things available, but people have to remember you have to do things at your own pace. Don't let anybody pressure you. Don't let anybody make you feel as if you're not doing enough, or you should have more. You're going too slow. This and that. No, don't get peer pressure. At the end of the day, when you can't make those payments, all those people make you feel like you need to buy. They're not going to come there and pay a mortgage for you. Okay, so I feel like a lot of people feeling pressured and making financial decisions that are not necessarily in their best interest because they feel they should be somewhere at a certain point in their life. And I don't live my life like that. I don't live. I'm not looking at the next person. I'm doing what's best for me. What I want to do will make sense for me. I'm not worried about what the next person is or isn't doing, you know. And I feel like we gotta, you know, do things. It has to make sense for you. Don't worry about trying to how it looks on the outside. Because I feel like a lot of times people look at you like, oh, if you don't have a house, like you're broke or you're not smart with money. Like people make a lot of. It's me getting older, realizing how people make a lot of assumptions about people in general based on some things that to me don't really move me or things that are not really that important to me. But people are, it's very interesting.
It's living in a very materialistic society.
Yeah. Remember, I sent you that post someone had made and people were ripping him. If you're not making six figures, you're lazy. Huh? How could someone open their mouth and say that? Like, why not? Just one comment that snapback. The problem is that you need to make six figures to even live a decent life. That's the problem that we're even starting with. Like, how could you boldly say if you're not making six figures right now, you're lazy? You know, some of the hardest working people I met in my life will never make six figures. Never. It's just not in their capacity based on what they're doing. And it has nothing to do with
targeting men, right? He was saying,
yeah. And you know, men have to come, but you know, men don't like that. I was furious because usually
the narrative is that women are telling them they should make six figures, but another man to tell you, oh, why don't you make six figures? It's like,
you're not to say I don't see where the point he's trying to come at. It's like, you know, we're in a time where there's so much access to resources, training. You can go do one program.
Go back to school if you got to go back to
school. Go back. I'm not saying you never have to go back to school because school is dead, right? You can go and do one program, one training, a few months, be a project manager or this one or that one. What's the one everyone's talking about now? Scrum, this Python.
Scrum been out.
This one, but I'm just saying, people are really jumping on it. Like a lot of these things have been out, but it's about people understanding how to get into it without going to school and getting a degree in it, going through the other paths. That's what's making it more and more popular. But it's like, y'all gotta stop. Like because then that makes people start feeling inferior when they don't have these things and feeling like, you know, they're losing in life or they're not where they need to be. And it may not be the case. It may not be their time. You know what I mean? Like we're all different. But let us know how you feel about this renting versus buying topic. Any more comments? Make sure you like this video. Please like the video. Please like this video and share it.
Only about 4% of the U.S. population make 100K and up. So that means 96%.
I thought that number was 16%.
More. I think it's more than 4%.
Let me check right now.
Let's just say 4% of people of color, maybe, or like a certain ethnic group. But I think way more.
18%. It's going up. It's 18%. Back then it used to be like 10%. So
that's like 1 in 5. Okay, so that's reasonable. So that's not is that a crazy standard to say a guy should make six figures? If it's
wait. That's how you want it. 55% make 50K a year or less. Let me get some reputable sources.
I just think it's more than 4, but it's a bit hefty. I'm not gonna lie, but I definitely think it's more than 4. Definitely.
More than some are saying 11% of all working women have 6-figure income. Yeah, I'm seeing some different numbers. 18 does sound high.
18 sounds a bit high. I'm not gonna.
Let me see,
but I don't think it's as low as 4%.
Let me see Bloomberg.
This is maybe 4% of the Black community. I can see that.
Yeah.
But 4% sounds low. I think way more than 4% of Americans make six figures. Any of my six-figure people in here? Y'all don't have these stats?
A third of U.S. households make over 100K, but that's 2 incomes, right? We're talking about individual people.
That's easier for 2 people to make 100K.
For sure. That breaks it 50. That makes it 50-50.
But you would be shocked how many don't even still.
It's crazy when you put stuff into perspective, like with the cost of living and how expensive things have become. like how many people are really just, trying to survive. And then you think about these. They've also mentioned that article, rent could stabilize places, right? You mentioned that North Carolina is not a rent stabilized state, so your rent can. Oh, I believe it's the same. I believe it's the same for Texas, but that's another issue. Like you can have rent this year, and then next year they can just up it how much, and like what can you really do? It's basically we're forcing people out
Right.
that are not paying enough.